Welcome to today's webinar. Our topic is BlueSpice as integrated management system. My name is Margit Link-Rodrigue. I'm a technical writer here at Hallo Welt and responsible for documentation and training. And today I'm going to show you our solution for using BlueSpice in the context of an integrated management system. What's on the agenda today? First, we're going to look at the general topic of document control in the wiki, since this is a prerequisite to even be able to talk about integrated management system. Then we look directly at the functionality of the templates we provide to get you started with using the wiki as a quality management system. We can also briefly look at the technical implementation. For some of you, that's interesting. For others, maybe you're not so curious. The most important thing, we're going to just use the templates and see how much you can do with them and how to customize them. If you have questions, of course, we will have some time to answer them at the end. So first of all, the context of document control in the wiki. And this looks like a lot of things to look at the same time, but I really like this graphic here because it explains in a nutshell the strengths of a wiki. So on the one hand, you have on the left the knowledge base. That's the typical use of a wiki. In a regular knowledge base, people collaborate on creating documentation or knowledge, and it's usually characterized by just being peer reviewed. So you simply write something in the wiki, you might categorize it, and you save it, and you have a valid version, and it really is a self-organizing system, and you use it to provide all kinds of information. For example, simple step-by-step instructions, maybe just standard recurring documents such as meeting minutes. Those are very simple but yet powerful use cases. On the right side, you see this big QM bubble where the wiki also has a lot of strengths. In the blue area, it says these are your controlled documents. For controlled documents, of course, it is important to realize that they do have a life cycle that needs to be supported by the technology, that you have formally assigned users with specific tasks to make sure that the documents stay up to date. So here in the yellow, you see you need people who write the documentation. Then you have reviewers to make sure that the documentation is correct. And then finally, somebody who is responsible or the owner of the information. That person usually needs to approve the document and monitor the life cycle of this document. You can distinguish between specification documents. Those are things like policies, work instructions, process descriptions, and so on that, of course, need to be maintained. And then you have, on the other hand, reports related to quality management. Those are documents that are written one time to show that you did a certain thing, something like a completed checklist or an audit report or some incident report or something that then doesn't really have a life cycle on its own, but it is important to have a record of it. Why would you do that? Sometimes you do it to comply with laws or because your company decides to follow certain standards, such as ISO standards, or you simply say, we don't even do that. We are way too small and we don't have the time to do it on that level. Then you can still use our templates because they really help any organization or company of any size to get started with thinking about quality management process and to have documentation of all that somewhere available for all stakeholders. The nice thing about a wiki is not only that you can combine these two big areas in one system, but that you, in addition, especially a smaller company, can also upload documents that support either your knowledge base or your quality management system to remove some of your most important maybe Word documents or PDFs from your network drives of individual employees where nobody can find them or knows what the latest version is. You can simply say we upload them also to the wiki and version them there so they can also be used for, that they get a life cycle or they can be audited very easily. And you always know what the currently latest version of a document is. Why do we talk about an integrated management system, or why are we trying to achieve that in a wiki? That simply means that your quality management areas are simply viewed as one coherent overall system. So all the topics that play into quality management usually have even their own standards, such as the quality requirements, environmental standards, energy, data protection, and so on. You, of course, try to keep the information as connected and as centralized as possible. The goal is always not to document for the purpose of documenting, but really to achieve some quality improvement in your company, to also comply with legal requirements, to implement best practices, to have a focus towards your growth, because once your company grows really fast, then it is good to have the basics of your processes, how your company works and what your goals are, monitored and written down. It also gives you clarity when you have to distribute certain responsibilities and functions in your company. If you have your roles clearly defined and associated with certain processes or checklists and so on, then you're prepared for further changes in your company. So the advantages of an integrated management system then are simply you prevent the implementation of isolated solutions. You make sure that rules are not defined in multiple places or multiple times, and then they contradict each other. And when you audit these things, you're not sure which one is the valid rule to apply. So simply putting it all in one system provides you with greater consistency. Also, then the responsibilities are clear because they are shown in context. And in general, you avoid loss of information because maybe there's information in one system that a person working in another system is not aware of and will never see. So it is either lost or might be unnecessarily duplicated. So what does that integrated approach mean in general? In the wiki, you can see quality management efforts in the context of the entire company knowledge. The great advantage then is that you can discover valuable knowledge and formalize it and then move it from your knowledge base pages into your controlled document area of the wiki and simply formalize processes that were documented but that had no life cycle yet. Then it's also good that you can consider multiple norms and standards at the same time. We will see that when we look at the templates, every process you create, you can associate with multiple standards because there are a lot of overlaps, especially in the different ISO standards as far as the structure is concerned. But you might say we are not even in the ISO world, and we do not see in the near future that we want to be ISO certified. These templates are not made specifically for that purpose, and they're totally independent of these norms. But it just means as soon as you have a company, you have some processes that you should follow or that you should think about, especially in your value chain. They should be clear for everybody working in your company, and you have to somehow create and share that information somewhere, no matter how small or how big your company is and how formally or informally you approach it in the beginning. The integrated approach has in common that everything you document together is usually process-oriented. A nice thing about the wiki for that purpose is when you get started, then you can just get started in a small way. And later, when it becomes more clear to you, or when you have more stakeholders that have different opinions on how to document that information, you can adjust your system and the way you write your processes here very nicely directly in the wiki, as we will see, without having to task, let's say, a technical department or some IT person to help you with that. Of course, you can separate these two types of information, and you can grant edit permissions or approval permissions. So what's the life cycle of these controlled documents that the wiki, of course, has to support? You have to first create the documents and edit them and come up with a first draft. This draft then gets reviewed if it is already a complete process that can be sent to approval. Then you want another person that is a subject matter expert or the process owner approve that document, and that person is then also usually responsible for maintaining the document. Then, of course, the process will have to be distributed and the stakeholders need to know about it, which of course is very easy in a wiki because you just send a link to the document and you know that people always look at the latest version of the process. For a while, nothing happens probably in the wiki. You now have to apply your process and kind of monitor it and just see if it works out for you. And then after a while that you already predefined, so you don't forget about it, you reevaluate your process. And then the cycle starts all over. You edit your process and make the changes and adjust it to what you learned from the previous cycle. It has to be reviewed again and so on. And at one point, maybe your process reaches the end of life because you don't offer certain products or services anymore and the process becomes obsolete. Then there needs to be, of course, a way to archive it. And if you already use the wiki, you could just create an archive namespace for that. The functionality of the templates that we created as a starting point focus on the basics that are defined in ISO 9001 that helps a company of any size to start quality management documentation. And here we support 4 types of documents. First, you should define the roles in your company, and then you have work instructions and process descriptions. They are just out of box named that way. Every company has a different view and they might not even distinguish between processes or procedures or work instructions. There are lots of variations here and it is very easy directly in the wiki if you have different requirements to change the templates and rename the terminology here. There's also a function to start some internal audits. You should, on a regular basis, of course, look at your processes that you defined and also then document what you learned in an audit report. The technical implementation I skip for now. Maybe I show you first how the documents work from a user perspective, and then if we have a little extra time, we can look at what makes these templates work. So let's look at our demo. For this, I'm using our demo system that's publicly available at en.demo.bluespice.com, and you can log in as a test user. I'm already logged in here as an administrator, but if you log in as test user with the password Hallo Welt, then you can play around a little bit with the functionality that we show here. So I'm just clicking at process descriptions for example, but usually you also get an overview page when you import these templates as a start page for your namespace that you use to document your quality management. In this case, we just have one namespace. It's called IMS. If you have different needs here, you could separate them and have a roles namespace or a work instructions namespace or an audit namespace and so on. Here we see the processes, work instructions, roles, standards, and audits. I haven't mentioned the standards, but we'll click on it and take a look. So here we have the processes, and I'm just typing in here an example. And here behind this button is a form that was created directly in the wiki as well. And you see you can collect some structured data about your process and you can assign the standards to this document. And then here you have the document type. Of course, we said process description. And here we distinguish between core processes, management processes, and supporting processes. If you're not familiar with it, you can simply ignore it and leave the core process here selected. You could add a document number. This is valuable, for example, if you currently already have a system where you document your processes and you assigned a number to it. You can reference that number for for users that are looking for that number to have an association with your previous documentation, but in general, it is not a requirement. Then the affected roles. As you see in the demo wiki here, I can only select 2 roles. That is because you have to define the roles in the wiki first that exist in your company so that you can assign them to a process. That simply avoids that people creating the processes come up with roles that they think are necessary and your company has no formal definition of that role. So here I just select one that exists. And then I could add a scope here as well. Usually a process applies to the entire company, but it could be if you have different locations that you say this only applies in a specific location, or it is, that's the main reason I would say, but usually it is for the entire company. And then every document needs an owner. If there are questions about the process or the document, that somebody can answer the questions or simply make sure that the process stays up to date. And then here you have some approval information that is set automatically by the wiki. Also, you can set some validity dates. Usually on the day of approval, the document becomes valid, so you can leave it open. But if you have to set a different date here for whatever reasons, you could override the default. The same is true for the validity date. It is also set to be valid for 1 year. That's defined in the template. You can, for individual processes, override it and say we have to check it every half year. Or it is valid for a year, but it has to get audited every half year. And then you can save the page. And here you see the document. So at the top, you see our document control area. That's something we keep up to date separately from the actual page content by always editing the form in this box itself. It simply opens a form link and you can change the information here. And then if you want to edit the actual content of your process, here you would then use the regular edit functionality of your page and start editing the content itself. Since this is based on a page template, they are located in the wiki and you can adjust them, of course, to your needs. As you see here, for example, the topic performance indicators, which is an important topic, they here are only listed in the flow text of the document, and to find them, you have to go to the page and look them up here. If your performance indicators are system-wide and you want to be able to reapply them and then get reports out of them, then you would have to do a little work to the templates and include them in your structured data here as a property to be able to collect that information. So it gets drafted and then somebody can review it, and that review process can be combined with the approval process. If you use a workflow here in the wiki, for example, you can select a expert document control workflow where you can have 6 eyes principle here, where you see the document gets checked out for editing by a specific proofreader person, somebody making the last changes, and then a reviewer looks at the changes and either approves them or sends them back to the editor. And if it's okay, the document, it goes to the approver, who then simply okays the changes. And from that point on, the document is approved. Or you simply can have somebody approve this page. And this functionality is only available to users who have the permission to approve drafts. So now it is approved. Let's look at the other elements. As you can see, there is in our document control box here a label for work instructions. A lot of times the processes don't even have to be known by all employees, but they do result usually in concrete work instructions. So if we have a work instruction that we create here, it's the same way as creating a process. It usually has a reference to an existing process. we have to define our roles here in the wiki, and that is a simple flat list. As you can see, it is somebody is assigned to the role, and it creates a role description that you can then display on other pages as well. And the rest is simply information about responsibilities and authorities for that role. Also, if processes and work instructions are associated with the role, they will automatically be displayed here. You don't have to put that in manually. The template does that already for you. And of course, if you say, I want to also see what team or business area the role is associated with, then you can customize this box for you so that we can also track here also maybe the business areas, whatever you want to enhance here in that role template. Then we have a little audit functionality. You can schedule audits and see that somebody is auditing parts of your QM system. And to do that, you simply define the area or the scope of your audit, also who will be your internal auditor, and the audit type, and some dates and a status. And then the template already gives you some way of documenting the outcome of your audit, which aspects you have considered, which conclusion the auditor drew, and also strength and weakness analysis. That's a good point then to go into meetings and discuss further needs or necessary changes to your QM documentation. The last thing I want to show too, we also created some overview pages. If you have different standards that you want to track in the wiki, then you just show the chapters of that standard, and then the wiki will show you if for certain chapters here you already have associated processes, and that way you get an overview what you want to work on and you can prioritize accordingly. So that's the basic functionality. As you see, I think for a very small template set that we have created here, it is already pretty powerful, and you can envision anything else you can do with it to make changes to it, because everything is created as wiki pages here in the wiki. So you do not need somebody with server access, some IT person to make any changes to your forms. But if you have learned how to do it yourself, or if you have some support hours, as I said, then you can get it done very fast and adjust the system to your needs. In the end, I do want to show you a little bit the technical background. As I said, everything is a wiki page here that I just showed you, and it starts that you support the creation of the document control box through wiki forms and the form input field. Also show a list of related documents that is simply created with an inline query based on semantic MediaWiki. And then the output here is when you create your new page that you here have a template called IMS document control that collects your structured data. And then each type of document has its own page template that is also then also provided during page creation. These properties are imported in the wiki when you import the template, but you can at any time create your own properties and add them to the template and to the form, and slowly maybe grow the functionality of the templates.